Section 9 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ellie. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 5, by Henry Gray. The Mouse, Part 2. The permanent teeth, dentes permanentes. The incisors, dentes incisivi, incisive for cutting teeth, are so named from their presenting a sharp cutting edge, adapted for biting the food. They are 8 in number and form the 4 front teeth in each dental arch. The crown is directed vertically and is scissor-shaped, being beveled at the expense of its lingual surface, so as to present a sharp horizontal cutting edge, which, before being subjected to attrition, presents 3 small prominent points, separated by 2 slight notches. It is convex, smooth, and highly polished on its labial surface, concave on its lingual surface, where, in the teeth of the upper arch, it is frequently marked by an inverted V-shaped eminence, situated near the gum. This is known as the basal ridge, or cingulum. The neck is constricted. The root is long, single, conical, transversely flattened, thicker in front than behind, and slightly grooved on either side in the longitudinal direction. The upper incisors are larger and stronger than the lower, and are directed obliquely downward and forward. The central ones are larger than the lateral, and their roots are more rounded. The lower incisors are smaller than the upper. The central ones are smaller than the lateral, and are the smallest of all the incisors. They are placed vertically, and are somewhat beveled in front, where they have been worn down by contact with the overlapping edge of the upper teeth. The cingulum is absent. The canine teeth, dentes canini, are 4 in number, 2 in the upper and 2 in the lower arch, one being placed laterally to each lateral incisor. They are larger and stronger than the incisors, and their roots sink deeply into the bones and cause well-marked prominences upon the surface. The crown is large and conical, very convex on its labial surface, a little hollowed and uneven on its lingual surface, and tapered to a blunted point or cusp, which projects beyond the level of the other teeth. The root is single, but longer and thicker than that of the incisors, conical in form, compressed laterally, and marked by a single groove on each side. The upper canine teeth, popularly called eye teeth, are larger and longer than the lower, and usually present a distinct basal ridge. The lower canine teeth, popularly called stomach teeth, are placed nearer the middle line than the upper, so that their summits correspond to the intervals between the upper canines and the lateral incisors. The premolars or bicuspid teeth, dentes premolares, are 8 in number, 4 in each arch. They are situated lateral to and behind the canine teeth, and are smaller and shorter than they. The crown is compressed antero-posteriorly, and surmounted by 2 pyramidal eminences or cusps, a labial and a lingual, separated by a groove, hence the name bicuspid. Of the 2 cusps, the labial is larger and more prominent. The neck is oval. The root is generally single, compressed, and presents in front and behind a deep groove, which indicates a tendency in the root to become double. The apex is generally bifid. The upper premolars are larger and present a greater tendency to division of their roots than the lower. This is especially the case in the first upper premolar. The molar teeth, dentes molares, are the largest of the permanent set, and their broad crowns are adapted for grinding and pounding the food. They are 12 in number, 6 in each arch, 3 being placed posterior to each of second premolars. The crown of each is nearly cubical in form, convex on its buccal and lingual surfaces, and flattened on its surfaces of contact. It is surmounted by 4 or 5 tubercles or cusps, separated from each other by a crucial depression. Hence the molars are sometimes termed multicuspids. The neck is distinct, large, and rounded. Upper molars. As a rule, the first is the largest, and the third the smallest of the upper molars. The crown of the first has usually 4 tubercles, that of the second 3 or 4, that of the third 3. Each upper molar has 3 roots, and of these 2 are buccal and nearly parallel to one another. The third is lingual and diverges from the others as it runs upward. The roots of the third molar, dens serotinus or wisdom tooth, are more or less fused together. Lower molars. The lower molars are larger than the upper. On the crown of the first there are usually 5 tubercles, on those of the second and third 4 or 5. Each lower molar has 2 roots, an anterior, nearly vertical, and a posterior, directed obliquely backward. Both roots are grooved longitudinally, indicating a tendency to division. The 2 roots of the third molar The cerotinos or wisdom tooth are more or less united. The deciduous teeth. Dentes decidui, temporary or milk teeth. The deciduous are smaller than, but generally speaking, resemble in form the teeth which bear the same names in the permanent set. The hinder of the two molars is the largest of all the deciduous teeth. It is succeeded by the second premolar. The first upper molar has only 3 cusps, 2 labial and 1 lingual. The second upper molar has 4 cusps. The first lower molar has 4 cusps. The second lower molar has 5. The roots of the deciduous molars are smaller and more divergent than those of the permanent molars, but in other respects bear a strong resemblance to them. Structure of the teeth. On making a vertical section of a tooth, a cavity will be found in the interior of the crown and the center of each root. It opens by a minute orifice at the extremity of the latter. It is called the pulp cavity and contains the dental pulp, a loose connective tissue richly supplied with vessels and nerves, which enter the cavity through the small aperture at the point of each tooth. Some of the cells of the pulp are arranged as a layer on the wall of the pulp cavity. They are named the odontoblasts of Waldeyer, and during the development of the tooth are columnar in shape. But later on, when the dentine is fully formed, they become flattened and resemble osteoblasts. Each has 2 fine processes, the outer one passing into the dental caniculus and the inner being continuous with the processes of the connective tissue cells of the pulp matrix. The solid portion of the tooth consists of the ivory or dentin, which forms the bulk of the tooth, the enamel which covers the exposed part of the crown, and a thin layer of bone, or cement or crasta petrosa, which is disposed on the surface of the root. The dentin, substantia arborea, ivory, forms the principal mass of a tooth. It is a modification of osseous tissue, from which it differs, however, in structure. On microscopic examination, it is seen to consist of a number of minute wavy and branching tubes, the dental caniculi, embedded in a dense homogeneous substance, the matrix. The dental caniculi, dentinal tubules, are placed parallel with one another and open at the inner ends into the pulp cavity. In their course to the periphery they present 2 or 3 curves and are twisted on themselves in a spiral direction. These caniculi vary in direction. Thus in the tooth of the mandible they are vertical in the upper portion of the crown, becoming oblique and then horizontal in the neck and upper part of the root, while toward the lower part of the root they are inclined downward. In their course they divide and subdivide dichotomously, and especially in the root give off minute branches, which join together in loops in the matrix or end blindly. Near the periphery of the dentin, the finer ramifications of the caniculi terminate imperceptibly by 3 ends. The dental caniculi have definite walls, consisting of an elastic homogeneous membrane, the dentinal sheath of Neumann, which resists the action of acids. They contain slender cylindrical prolongations of the odontoblasts, first described by Thoms, and named Thoms fibers or dentinal fibers. The matrix, intertubular dentin, is translucent, and contains the chief part of the earthy matter of the dentin. In it are a number of fine fibrils, which are continuous with the fibrils of the dental pulp. After the earthy matter has been removed by steeping a tooth in weak acid, the animal bases remaining may be torn into laminae, which run parallel with the pulp cavity across the direction of the tubes. A section of dry dentin often displays a series of somewhat parallel lines, the incremental lines of Salter. These lines are composed of imperfectly calcified dentin arranged in layers. In consequence of the imperfection of the calcifying process, little irregular cavities are left, termed interglobular spaces. Normally a series of these spaces is found toward the outer surface of the dentin, where they form a layer which is sometimes known as a granular layer. They have received their name from the fact that they are surrounded by minute nodules or globules of dentin. Other curved lines may be seen parallel to the surface. These are the lines of Schrager, and are due to the optical effect of simultaneous curvature of the dental fibers. Chemical composition. According to Berzelius and von Bibra, dentin consists of 28 parts of animal and 72 parts of earthy matter. The animal matter is converted by boiling into gelatin. The earthy matter consists of phosphate of lime, carbonate of lime, a trace of fluoride of calcium, phosphate of magnesium, and other salts. The animal substantia adamantina is the hardest and most compact part of the tooth, and forms a thin crust over the exposed part of the crown, as far as the commencement of the root. It is thickest on the grinding surface of the crown, until worn away by attrition, and becomes thinner toward the neck.